This is Literary Onion, and you're watching Which Land Wins at Disneyland Paris. Disneyland Paris, like most Disney parks and theme parks worldwide, is broken into separate lands, and each of those lands has quick service restaurant options for the guests to eat at. But which of these lands is the best place to find a meal without having to book a restaurant? That's what we spent the better part of 2 days at Disneyland. For each land, Main Street, Adventureland, Frontierland, Fantasyland, Discoveryland, and for this, because of how small it is, we're counting Walt Disney Studios as one land, we looked up which of the restaurants was the highest rated in that area so that the land would be represented by their most popular quick service option. That being said, let's start from the bottom of the ranks and work our way up to the cream of the crop. Welcome to Discoveryland, home of, well, when it comes to food, not very much. You have a couple carts when they're open, and only one restaurant option in total, quick service or otherwise. That being the Hyperion restaurant. You may remember this restaurant from our previous Snack Wars video. If you haven't seen it, feel free to go and take a watch after this video. It came bottom of our quick service cake rankings there, and unfortunately, it has to come bottom of our quick service restaurant rankings too. Hyperion is a giant restaurant, arguably the biggest, with the most seating of any in the park. But that makes it all the sadder that it doesn't live up to potential that it has. The theming is fine, with many depictions on the walls and on the outside of Jules Verne's Around the World in 80 Days. I particularly like the pigeons on the dirigible outside, which are usually working animatronics. They were not on the visit where I filmed this, unfortunately. But this theming is unfortunately a relic from a time that this restaurant was completely different, and so it's now confused and tired and old. The other main feature in here is a giant stage, which was showing the Christmas show at Christmas time, and shows cartoons on screens when the show isn't on. This to me is the only real selling point of the Hyperion and its building. It's a good place to go and chill on a busy park day, and get into the warmth or air conditioning, depending on the season. But personally, I would only buy a drink in order to use the dining seating. There is other seating that doesn't require you to buy any food or drink, but be warned, there is cast members preventing you from entering the multitude of dining seating, and they're not very good at opening all of the seating either. And why would I only buy a drink, you may ask? Because genuinely, the Hyperion is arguably one of, if not the, worst restaurants at Disneyland Paris. We've given it a chance twice now, and found the food to be not inedible, but pretty close if you want good food, or needing to be drowned in sauce just to cover it up. To be honest, the few edible bits are extremely expensive versions of the McDonald's. It's about a 10-minute walk from this restaurant. The seasonal burger in Christmas season when we went was lukewarm. Again, that was a common experience across both our visits to Hyperion. The flavours were just confused, they didn't balance, and the bun had a weird aftertaste. Maybe from the dyes that we used to colour it, but I'm not entirely sure. The chicken nuggets were fine. I'm sure my niece, who's a picky eater, would tolerate them, but why would I bring her here and get expensive versions of something I can eat multiple other places, including McDonald's? €5 plus for 4 small nuggets is ridiculous. The cake, well, Snack Wars told you how I felt about that. On a previous visit, I had a fish burger, and it was cheap tasting. Like, really, you know when you get really cheap fish fingers in the UK? Again, that's oddly UK specific, but when you get really cheap fish fingers, like, they're grey and they're fishy tasting and they're just nasty. That's what it tasted like. For a couple euros more, you can visit Annette's in Disney Village. Again, another video on that if you want to go see that. And get an actual quality burger. And at the time, actually, we went, the Christmas burger was very similar in flavour combinations as the one in Annette's, and the one in Annette's was vastly superior for a couple of euros more. So it really, the math ain't mathing there. I generally think you'd be better off just going to get McDonald's cheap burger. It's not a good restaurant. It's not a good burger specifically. I don't eat burgers, but I tried it. It's not good. As for customer service, it's a large restaurant and there isn't many cast members. We had a wheelchair with us and were struggling to carry the tray, and unlike many other restaurants in Disney, we weren't offered any help. It took us a long time to find a seat, and by the time we did, my disabled mother was in a lot of pain. Unfortunately, I think the Hyperion, a space with such a lot of potential, fails in multiple areas and is the last restaurant we would visit when going to Disneyland Paris. Which is all the worse when we see multiple videos of Americans and other first-timers to the park having Hyperion represent the Disneyland Paris food. No, Discoveryland is far and away the worst of the lands to eat in, and there's no other restaurant to help bring that rating up. We take a big leap up now as we enter Frontierland, which actually tied with the next land, but we'll get onto that one soon. Frontierland was represented by its highest rated restaurant, Cowboy Cookout, which ironically also serves the seasonal burger, but it's not what we got here. Now, Cowboy Cookout is actually an old favourite of ours. We ate here around 2021 for the first time, back when the parks were practically empty. It was I don't want to say a great time, it wasn't a great time, but it was a good time. It was nice, relaxed. And we're surprised at the quality of the meal and space of Cowboy Cookout in 2021. We fully expected this restaurant going into this competition to be somewhere near the top, but whether it was just an off day when we went or it's gone down in quality since then, we had some issues. Not with the food, really. The food was okay. We ordered the full cowboy meal with 3 different types of meat included. The sausage was flavourful but a bit gritty and chewy. The ribs were okay, but needed a bit of a kick of spices. And the chips were decent, but not as good as we'd had that previous time. The chicken was the star of the show with more flavour and a better texture than anything else on the plate. Whilst I would say everything else was the average version of itself, the chicken was the best version of itself. The best version of a simple cooked piece of chicken anyway. Overall, that made the food good, but fairly average and forgettable. And the price isn't overly bad, to be fair, for the quantity of meat you get. I don't want to spend too much time on the theming, as I want to get onto the couple of issues we had, but I will say that the theming is excellent. The detail on the roof, and in all the chairs being different, and the walls having so much Wild West memorabilia, you can tell there's a story to it, even if you're not sure what the story is. I believe it's supposed to be a community gathering place in the Wild West, where everyone brings their own chair, hence the mismatched chairs. It's a big space with plenty of room, and as a bonus has some of the best character meet and greets outside, which tend to be less busy because the restaurant is so tucked away. It can be a bit dark inside the restaurant, so if you want to take video or pictures of the food, you might want to go sit in the outside seating. The lighting was terrible, as you can see, when we were trying to shoot this. The issue we did have was all to do with the service. Not the cast members, all of them were perfectly nice, but at least when I went in, there was nobody there to tell you which queue to join, which led to me and another lady joining the wrong queue and being told to move to the other side after already standing there for a while. The guests in front of me were deciding what they wanted at the till, which isn't the fault of the cast members, but obviously adds on a bit of time, and is not a problem I've usually had at Disney restaurants. The main problem, though, was in the collecting of your food. There were only 2 cast members covering about 3 to 4 queues of people waiting for their food. Granted, they weren't long queues, as it wasn't peak eating time, but it was clearly a struggle for them to juggle all those queues. Their food was coming out quite slowly and intermittently, so they were having to wait to finish orders, leading to often working on 1 tray at a time. It just wasn't very efficient or organised, and overall I waited around perhaps 15 minutes from start to finish, which would be fine in a normal restaurant, but in a quiet quick service restaurant shows a need for a better system to be put in place, just to help the cast members have an easier job of it. Anyway, all of that aside, it could have just been a bad day, so I wouldn't say don't eat here. I still enjoy Cowboy Cookout, and I think it's great value for money. However, in this competition, it and Frontierland have to take 6th place, joint with Cable Car Bake Shop. Yep, we're on Main Street now, and we're toying with the idea of what exactly a quick service restaurant is. For our definition, we've included any quick counter service restaurant that you could feasibly eat an entire meal at. Something that would fill you up anyway. And Cable Car and their newer Kiki Delights fit that bill. Now, your experience in Cable Car, I think, is going to be entirely dependent on when you go in. At different times during the day, it's practically empty in there. And because their system involves simply picking up your own items from a window, it's obviously a quick and efficient system during those times. However, in busier times, nighttime, lunchtime, etc., one thing really holds it all up. Coffee. Coffee, tea, hot drinks. They're all made by the person at the till, and because of course so many people stop on Main Street for their coffee at night, etc., it holds up the line considerably. Quickly, an efficient system crumbles to the caffeinated beverage. The actual restaurant itself, I think, has really good theming. Cable cars are represented everywhere. There's interesting pictures to look at on the walls, showing some American history, and even the seating of the restaurant is designed to look like the inside of a cable car. However, unfortunately, this is also one of its biggest weaknesses. Seating in this very popular restaurant cafe is sparse. It's not unusual to see people walking out of the doors into the arcade behind it with confused looks on their faces, food in hand, as they try to figure out where they can sit down to eat. Cable car just isn't built to be popular, something it and Victoria's nearby have in common. It isn't built to be a necessity at the front of the park. As for the food, well, 2 were featured on the Snack Wars video, so I go more into depth there and you can watch that if you want to see more in depth. I will at least say they were very well made here, and they're not to my taste, but they were very well made. The Mickey ham and cheese pretzel bread sandwich was not on the other video, is now on this one. It's very photogenic, but it needs a tiny bit of work as it's a bit dry and lacking in freshness. Some of the salad, weirdly in the salad vegetarian version of it, would have gone a long way to making it more palatable. In fact, if I were to get the sandwich again, which I wouldn't be against, I would definitely go back to cable car again, I would probably choose the vegetarian version for this reason. It needs moisture. As it is right now, it sucks your mouth dry, and when it's as big as it is, and it is really big, good price, but big, it's a pretty big problem when it's drying out your mouth that much. So it's joint 5th and 6th place with Frontierland and Main Street onto the 4th place. And now we enter Adventureland and their top-rated restaurant, Hakuna Matata. Actually, that's not the only representative for Adventureland, but more on that later. It's actually kind of sad that this ended up in middle ground, because food-wise, this is arguably probably my favourite of the competition, just for that one visit alone. We'd been to Hakuna Matata before, a couple of years ago. We found the food to be okay. Pretty lukewarm, but quite tasty. Since then, they've changed the menu, and honestly, I think they've made it better. At least with the 2 items I've had so far. We had the chakalaka, and definitely not because after all the snacks and quick services we'd eaten already, we were desperate for some vegetables. The rice it was served with wasn't the best rice. It was a bit overcooked and stuck together, but the flavour was decent, and when eaten with the flavourful, tasty chakalaka, it wasn't that noticeable. Is the chakalaka going to wow anyone who eats that dish regularly? Probably not. I'm sure they describe it as a very average chakalaka. However, for a theme park dish for vegetarians, it felt like a warm hug on a plate. And it was very needed at the time, believe me. The banana cupcake was equally good, not surprising anyone who knows its placement in the Snack Wars video. The theming of the restaurant and the excess of different seating areas is excellent. I weirdly have vague memories of eating here as a very little kid, only because I remember eating in a restaurant with Timon and Pumbaa on the walls and being in love with it. The different spaces and rooms make the entire restaurant feel intimate and relaxed. The outside seating, though cold both times we'd used it, are also well themed, and bonus provide a really good view to the plethora of characters that come back and forth from their meet and greet areas. So far from the different seating areas we have seen Baloo, Jafar, and then in a previous time we watched Rafiki at his meet and greet area from the seating at Hakuna Matata. So, pretty decent for characters. So you might be asking, but Larry Onion, if you have nothing but praise to give Hakuna Matata, why is it only 4th in the rankings? And I would answer, for the same reason Cowboy Cookout was knocked down to its position. The efficiency of the food collection. For what it's worth, the ordering system was a lot easier. I was directed to my queue, given a menu so I could decide what I wanted before I got there. All good. The cast members were all lovely to me and smiled continually. There were a lot of them there working on multiple trays at a time. My own food, when I got to the front, came quickly and efficiently. To get there, though, I had to wait whilst the cast members had to wait for their kids' chicken nuggets to arrive to complete their orders. These chicken nuggets, I'm telling you, were clearly causing so much pain and ruining the flow of the system. Every other item on the menu came out efficiently, all designed for ease to quickly serve, but the chicken nuggets were clearly being fried on an order-by-order basis, and waiting for chickens to reach the right core temp every time was ruining all the hard work. I would also guess that the kitchen's not set up for that many frying jobs. Food would be put onto trays, hot drinks would be poured, and then we would all be waiting around for the chicken nuggets to arrive. I'm sure by the time people took their meals to the table, they were having the same lukewarm food we had in Hyperion, which ruins what could be great. It's sad that this great restaurant and Adventureland had to be brought down to 4th place by a chicken nugget, but it wouldn't be fair if I didn't critique it based on my full experience. Sort out the efficiency of the kids menu here, Disney. You're so close to a great quick service restaurant. Coming in at number 3, we have our second entry for Adventureland, Colonel Hathi's Outpost. Now this wasn't the top rated restaurant in Adventureland, that was Hakuna Matata. So why include it? Well, all the reviews on Colonel Hathi's at the time of planning this video were based on their old menu. They changed their menu entirely last year and no new reviews had come in yet for it, so it didn't feel fair that it couldn't compete. Also, we wanted to try it, so we decided to shoehorn it in somehow. So yes, Adventureland had 2 competitors. As of writing this, Colonel Hathi's has half gone back to their old menu, which I cannot tell you how disappointed I was when I heard this, and you will find out why. I've never actually been to Colonel Hathi's before this visit. It used to have the same menu as Bella Norte, another restaurant I've never been to, as And I think I've mentioned this in another video, probably Snack Wars. I'm not a big pasta fan, and I don't want to spend so much money on mediocre pizza and pasta. It's not my idea of fun. I will if this video gets enough likes and watches, though, just out of curiosity more than anything, so please like, comment, share, and all the fun stuff. Honestly, I feel like it's actually a shame that I've never been to this restaurant before. Colonel Hathi's is genuinely beautiful. It's probably the most beautiful of the quick services in Disneyland Paris. The theming's excellent with little details everywhere. The seating is all comfortable and there's a vast amount of it. Unfortunately, it's so well hidden as a restaurant that it's never been busy at all when I've walked past. Trees and plants surround it, that's the double-edged sword, as it creates a secluded otherworldly experience whilst you're in it, but it also blocks it from view for people who are walking nearby so that people don't go into it. The efficiency in service is hard to judge as we went at an extremely quiet part of the day, but it seems to be reasonably efficient and definitely its menu items support service as they're fairly easy to make and serve in big quantities. The cast members were also constantly keeping up with the cleaning of the tables, which again, hardly anyone was there, so it would be hard to judge it on this. I will say though, we went into other restaurants like Hakuna Matata, Cowboy, Cookout, etc., at quiet times, and they were not nearly as efficient. Clearly, because they're lower on the list. The new menu is something I've been wishing them to do at Colonel Hathi's since I first started researching the park. It's set in Adventureland. It's based on a character in the Jungle Book. A good percentage of the people visiting the park come from the UK. Make it an Indian restaurant. Indian food rewards efficiency. There's a reason there's so many Indian takeaways in the UK. It can be made in mass and doled out quickly. And it's popular, with lots of easy to add flavour. Even in other restaurants around France now, I'm starting to see Indian food spread onto menus, albeit with no chili heat and only the spices, but it's a start. I long thought that copying one of their own restaurants in Disney World that serves a naan bread with multiple dips would be perfect for a quick service menu at Colonel Hathi's. You can even call it an elephant ear and make it big, or make it Mickey shaped like a lot of pizzas. They didn't go that direction though. Instead they kind of half-heartedly took the pizzas they already had and changed the toppings to vaguely Indian for one half of their menu. A cheap cop-out and obviously not a successful one, as this is the part that's reverted back to their original plain pizza form. The other side though is where they allowed Indian food to properly sneak in. We had the vegetarian lentil dal with naan and rice while we visited, and also included a side of onion bhajis and dip. First off, I want to start with a big positive. The rice was perfectly cooked. It was in separate grains, unlike Hakuna Matata, was fluffy and had a nice bite to it. The naan was okay, didn't really have that nice naan flavour that I'm used to, predominantly from Nigella seeds I will admit, and tasted more like a generic flatbread, but it was perfectly serviceable as a scoop for the dal and the rice. The dal itself was flavourful, and was perhaps one tweak away from being balanced. I would play with the ratios of spices a bit more, and then I really do think it could be great. The actual lentils were like the rice, great texture, just enough bite to make it have some texture without having to chew through it, not chalky, that's what I meant. Although I wasn't the biggest fan of the dish, it wasn't my favourite, my mum did really like it, and other than the chakalaka, it was her favourite of the competition, and one of her favourites of the stay. The onion bhajis were again fine. They were nothing better than I could buy at a supermarket for cheaper, but as a snack they were in good quantity and filled you up. The dip, though, needs to change. It tastes like a mayonnaise-based dip, which, in my opinion, doesn't belong anywhere near a bhaji. It doesn't work with them at all. It was too sour, too salty, and overall unpleasant. A simple sour cream, herby sour cream, mango chutney would be perfect. They all would be just far better and more enjoyable. Just get rid of that dip, change it to a different dip. The food, however, isn't what gave Colonel Hathi's third place. It scored highly on pretty much everything else, but was only slightly above average on quality of food. However, I don't want to slam the food entirely, because I want them to keep going with it. I don't want them to revert the menu back to the original. I strongly believe the Indian food is the right direction with this quick service. Hell, I'd even accept her heading into the Vietnamese direction, which is more embedded into the French culture than Indian. It's so close to being perfect. Number one, quick service, and all it would take is a braver step with the food. Add more complexity to the spices in your curries. Make some proper naan. Change the dip on your bhajis. Take the pizzas off and fill your menu with another curry or dish that fits the area. Be brave. This could be number one, and it's so close. You can do it, Disney. And then fix Hyperion, because I also believe it has a lot of potential if you work on it from the ground up. We're at number 2, and we're finally stepping into Fantasyland, which I think is the main land people think of when they think of Disney, right? Okay, Let's see if any of you can guess what restaurant was the best rated online in here. You have a lot of choices. There's a few quick service in Fantasyland. Obviously, you know it's not Bellinata, as I've just told you I've never eaten there, so maybe... Never mind, this idea was dumb. The winner was Turd Hall. We were surprised to see a fish and chip restaurant so highly rated. Not that fish and chips can't be good, because they very much can. It's just in a theme park in France. Everyone in the UK knows you go to the coast for good fish and chips. Even in France, and before anyone asks, yes, fish and chips is on many menus around France and is seemingly very popular. It's been showing up more and more over the last 10 years. And actually, just a quick anecdote, they actually changed the name because originally when I started to see it pop up, it was always either poisson et chips or fish et frites. But then all of a sudden it just became fish and chips. Anyway, anecdote over. Honestly, since living in France, I can say that I have rarely craved fish and chips. If I did want it, I find it fairly easy to make my own, but I've never felt it necessary, because I've never craved it. Toad Hall, however, reminded me how good fish and chips can be. Now, don't get me wrong, the coast still has way better fish and chips, but for a theme park fish and chips, we were genuinely surprised at the quality and value for money. I wouldn't compare these fish and chips to seaside fish and chips, but compared to a pub or a restaurant fish and chips, it was actually a pretty great version. The chips were less British chippy, more pub oven chip style, but they were crispy and fluffy on the inside as you would want. The batter on the fish was crispy, not too thick, and the fish soft and good quality. The tartar sauce provided with it, made in the Netherlands no less, yes I did check, was great, like addictive. I needed way more of it. Just give me more and I'd be happy. So way to go Netherlands, you get tartar sauce. Overall, if you're from the UK, unless you really don't want to eat anything new, it's not going to beat your local probably, but it's a really decent fish and chips, and a big surprise. The biggest surprise we had during this competition, to be honest. Toad Hall is also beautiful. On the outside, it's got so many little details, and those details only get even bigger on the inside. It took looking up above others and realising the picture didn't look the same for some reason, to realise the picture was actually changing, showing Toad wearing multiple different periods of history outfits / famous historical figure outfits. There were small details like that everywhere. It's like a wonderland for people like me who love storytelling. Like Hakuna Matata, the restaurant's broken up into rooms to create that intimate feeling, and honestly, it really feels like you're in someone's living room. It feels so personal, and it's just so well done. If Colonel Hathi's was the most beautiful, Toad Hall is the most homely, the most intimate, the most calm. The cast members were also brilliant. They helped me by going through the allergy lists with me, making sure there was no cross-contamination with shellfish. I can attest they were right, there were no problems at all. They saw we were going to struggle with the tray and the wheelchair, so they carried it to the table for us. They helped us out of the door before we even started to struggle, and they cleaned up quickly and efficiently. I'm not surprised this is the top rated in Fantasyland, and I believe it might also have been the top rated in the entire park. It was a happy surprise, and 100% deserves its number 2 spot. Snack Wars also has the cake we ate here, so again, feel free to watch that video after this one. Plug, 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 thank you. And now we finish at last on the number 1, the highest scoring, the cream of the crop. Have you guessed it? You're right, I assume. We're heading over to Walt Disney Studios finally and entering Avengers Campus for Stark Factory. We've eaten here many times since its opening, including after hours when we won a competition to attend an event there. The storytelling in this restaurant is amazing, especially for a Marvel fan like me. Finally, Peggy Carter gets her rightful place. No buggy parking like in Anaheim, but an actual desk and workspace where you can pretend you're having lunch with your favourite government worker / spy. The building having been Howard Stark's factory, and then used as a building by the SSR in the war, and then S.H.I.E.L.D. following that. The story is told through multiple rooms and multiple details. It's one of the best areas in an already greatly designed land like Avengers Campus. The service is extremely efficient. You pick up your food, like at a work canteen, which is what this is themed as, your cutlery, etc., in the line as you walk down. You pay at the end of the line, and then you go eat. There's plenty of cast members around to help guide you if you don't know what you're doing. They're quick to clean, they're quick to restock. I've been many times and hardly ever had any problems. If you want fizzy drinks, I should say, you buy it at the till. They give you a barcode to scan at the drinks machines, and then essentially you can get about 1.5 cups worth of drink out of that barcode. It will show you how much you've got left on the actual machines. So it's fairly easy to use. If you do need help, there's cast members everywhere, so I wouldn't worry. It helps that the food is also amazing though. When we heard originally it was going to be a pizza and pasta restaurant, we were really disappointed. There was already what felt like a surplus of that around the parks. It felt unoriginal and cheap, but they didn't go that way. They didn't just decide to make generic pasta and pizza. They decided to make great pizza and pasta, especially pizza. Unlike Bellinate and other places, where they clearly buy in pizzas, at Stark Factory they make their own dough, and it's great. It has great flavour and a perfect texture. The one time it hasn't been as good was at that night event, and I can pretty much guess what happened. They ran out quicker than they thought during the day, so quickly made a new batch, which wasn't given the usual length of time they gave it to rise. Based on the many times I've eaten it, I would guess it's a very long rising dough. During the day, they've always been consistent though. They've changed the toppings once since opening, and despite the changes, they've all been good. The vegetarian pizza we used to get is just as great as the chicken and parmesan pizza we had this time, and have since had again. The pasta, which I finally tried this February, told you in Snack Wars I would try it eventually, is fine. I mean, it's pasta, so it's not for me, but the mac and cheese was a great version of mac and cheese. Above and beyond what I would expect it to taste like. It doesn't taste generic and tastes instead fresh, using a strong salty and sour cheese that gives it a punch of flavour. And it's a big portion for the price as well, so I actually think it may be worth the cost. And I'm saying that begrudgingly, because I would never buy pasta if I wasn't reviewing it. The one dud we've had here was the pudding dough twist with chocolate and cranberry. It was just dry and flavourless, not worth the money at all. But even that doesn't hurt my opinion that Stark Factory, despite being the only competitor available in Walt Disney Studios currently, is number one, and is a great sign for things to come if they stick with the quality of this restaurant going forward in the studios. So what do you think? Would you rate the restaurants differently? Perhaps you had a different experience than we did. The best way to review a restaurant usually would be to frequent it a few times to check consistency, but obviously that's not the easiest or the cheapest thing to do. You could also be lucky or unlucky every time, so yeah, I won't be surprised if any of you had a different experience. I hope you enjoyed this video. This took a lot longer to make than we were hoping, mostly because I had to wait until February to get the final shots of Cable Car, as it was way too busy when we went in November, and I couldn't avoid filming other people, which I always try to avoid if I can, and then straight after February's visit we got sick. Is there any videos you'd like us to make? Anywhere you'd want us to review? Please leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that usual stuff, because we have more Disneyland Paris content coming, as well as some other fun things in the pipeline. Hope you're having a great day, and if not, I hope one's coming for you soon. Thank you, bye!